Okay, today I want to go into uh, importing from a flat Excel spreadsheet into multiple tables with parent-child relationships. So to do this, you're always going to the user is going to do this over and over again. So they have a source Excel spreadsheet that's constantly going into their database. So you want it sort of named the same way in the same place and having a permanent link. In this case, C Genesis databases speakers. And where is that? Access database. So now I have I'm trying to get into these tables, the speakers and the speaker styles. There'll be ranked and there'll be a few styles. Okay. So first, external data from file, Excel. I find my source file. In this case, it's in C Genesis databases speakers. I want it to be linked. I press OK. I can press first row contains, next, finished. So now we have this linked file, which is always going to be our source. We're not going to do anything to this except remove it. So now I want to create a separate intermediary file that I'm going to use to process this data. So I am going to use a make table so first I'll just do a make table, and then I'll call this table speakers. I often say processing or something that signifies that. Okay, and I run this. Now we have this. So this is always going to be our destination file. We do that once for the initial setup, and this is our destination file. I'm going to take the values out of it. Okay. So now I am going to create that make table thing is a one-time thing, but I need to create an append query that's going to move all this data into there. And let's see if this works on these, and we'll press run. Yes. Now I will save this as query app table speakers to table speaker processing. Pretty long, but okay. And I'm going to close that. Now the problem is that if I keep running that, then I get duplicates, which, since these imports are going to be run on some code or some repetitive data, we need to stop. We don't want to. We want to basically bring data in once and process it. So in order to prevent duplicates, you have to have something. In this case, that speaker ID as a primary field is not reliable. Normally speaking, you wouldn't have that in Excel spreadsheet. But let's say first name, last name mix. So we can create a multi-key I call these multi-key. Last name, first name, unique. multi-key primary key. And then we've, yes, now let's run that query. Appended to, did not append the next two. That is our goal. So that is the means by which we're going to write code that executes that query, and that's the means to get things to our table speaker processing. So now the challenge is to get the data from here to these two tables. Now, the problem is that the parent table creates this data, and by definition, the parent record has to occur prior to the child record. But when you're doing it, you won't know the ID for the parent, so you have to have a mechanism for that. So what I would do is create just a temp value. We'll just call it temp ID. And this one is supposed to connect this parent table to the source table. So the next query I'm going to create is I'm going to move this, we're going to append it to table speakers, and we're going to put last name and first name, and then into that temp ID we'll put this into temp ID. So we do run, and then we're going to move those in there, and then we're going to save this. Save, I often call it query like MIG speakers 1, like migrate speakers 1. Okay, now our trick is to basically, so what we've hopefully achieved is we've got this, but what we don't have is this. So we're still using this, and essentially we have to have enough movement so that all the relevant data from the source goes over. So I am going to first of all link this to table speakers this way. So now I have some connection because I'm going to have to move this to the destination. So now in this ranking thing, it's a bit tedious, but we're going to do it. So now let's see if we can move speaking style 1. So speaking style 1 would go, now we're going to append it to table speakers styles. Okay. And now to do this, now all this has the input things when they're part of an ID field have to exist in the list at the destination. So there has to be, this match has to work. And if that there's different type of error reports and such to show if that doesn't work, but this definitely has to work. So here we have, we're moving this, the wording of speaker style we're connecting these IDs, and now I'm going to send this to, no, I'm not going to send, I'm going to send this, which is the representation to the destination in our, I've confused myself, but it should be this one, SS speaker style ID, and then so our goal in terms of filling out this multi-relational field here, our goal is to get these three. That's an auto number, so that doesn't matter. So this is the rank. This is my first most comfortable. Second, this is the person, and this is the style. So that's the style. This is the person, and that's going to go into this one. And since we are dealing with number one, then rank is going to equal 1. And then let's execute that. Oh, yes, because there's 2 of them. So I'm going to save. Oh, I saved this. Oops, I should have. That I need to keep that one. That was my first one, so I'm going to go up here and save object as, and I'm going to call it 2. Okay. Now I'm going to take this 2, and I'm going to copy it twice. Control C, and we'll make it 3 and 4. Okay, and then I open up 3, and now we're going to do it. Ironically, it's called 3, but we're going to do it for number 2, and change this to 2, and we can do run. Yes, and now in this one we're going to do it to 3 and change this to 3 and run. Yes, let's close these, save them, and let's see what happened. We have, cross your fingers, David Bloom, and now I am looking at my styles, and looks like numbers to you, but let's see if we did a query with this. We'd have David Bloom is first is workshop, then hosting, then panel, and Ken Jones is 1 and 2. This is what we're trying to achieve. Okay. So the only thing left is really to put it, essentially there's a code that would do this. So I will oops. So usually we haven't built the forms, but you would put the code that would work in one of 2 ways. Either it would execute by an action, like opening up the switchboard every time someone did something, which is unlikely in this situation. But there'd probably be a form, and it would say import data. So, and then for import data, you do command dot open query, and then you'd put all your queries. Usually you do, before this you do command set warnings false, and then at the end of it you'd go back to true. That's sort of so they don't get 30 different messages. But on the import data button you would set the warnings, and then you'd execute those queries which you saved, which is the means by which you're moving the data. You also have to make sure that, again, in the destination, that it's unable to overwrite it. In one scenario, in the best scenario, the destination files are indexed in a way that doesn't allow you to overwrite those things, which is the best way of doing it. In a different scenario, in this thing, you pretty much create a field like imported that pretty much, after you execute your whole code, you mark that as no. So that's it. I hope this was helpful. This is David Berniker from Genesis Databases. Thank you. Oops, where am I?